In this video, we're going to be talking about Gen Z and the problems of our era and how they spill into other generations as well, and our path forward and how I believe we can overcome these issues. I want to give you the autonomy to click through and skip to whatever part of this video that you want to get the information that you want as quick as possible. If you would like to skip this table of contents section and get right to the video, go to this timestamp. This video can be broken down into two parts. Part one, the problem.
I'm eating a hungry man's dinner because I can't afford groceries.
Breaking down all the issues and diving into the maze of opinions regarding this generation's challenges. Then part two, the prescription, what we can do to overcome these challenges. All right, so here are the chapters of the video and all their here are the chapters of the video and all their timestamps. Without further ado, let's get started with part one. We are a chosen generation called forth to show her excellence. Gen Z is in a state right now of ultimate challenges, hardship, unsung merit.
Working a basic 9 to 5 is causing Gen Z to have a mental breakdown.
Some Gen Z guy filmed himself crying on the way to work, and judging by the comments, this is normal for guys of this generation?
Okay, so I'm currently driving to work, crying. I feel like anyone who's in the early 20s is like, what the f are we doing?
There's no way I'm gonna be able to afford living in the city right now, so that's off the table. Like,
cannot stand how the news has been dogging Gen Z and calling them lazy for not wanting to work a 9 to 5 for the rest of their lives. Let me put it in perspective for everybody who's a little confused here, okay?
I do want to work, but the problem is the purpose of a job is supposed to pay for you to be able to afford to live, and that's just not the case anymore. Everything is so expensive right now, and wages are not keeping up with the cost of living. That is why my generation is frustrated. That is why we don't want to work anymore, because we work really hard and we still can't afford to even get by. So like, what's the point?
You, America, for making me work 4 f***ing jobs! 4 jobs! While I'm in college in rural f***ing Tennessee and I can barely pay my own f***ing rent, and I'm taking 19 credit hours on top of those 4 f***ing jobs.
What this is about is whiny, weak, woke youngsters who don't understand how the world works. And I really think these young people need to understand, work harder, do better, stop blaming others, blame yourself.
But not for no cause, not for no reason. Not without recompense. I see it as a pruning. I think you should too. And there's something greater waiting for all of us. Back once again to offer some direction and clarity to the video. I showed my friend this video, and he said that it's good, he just gets lost sometimes. So I'm just gonna add some structure to the video every time I pop up like this. I'm literally gonna tell you what topic we're getting into and what's coming up right after that. First, we have the intro. It's a brief overview of our generation's problems. It's a little fast-paced, but just bear with me. We work to no avail.
It's always been a habit of older people to say, oh, the youth these days. When I look at the young people today, all they do is work. I'm astonished.
We entered the economy at the heights of inflation. We do more than our predecessors for way less.
Way more than when I was a student, 25
when
years ago.
I was a kid in Alberta, I could work in the summer, and I didn't work on the rig, so I didn't have one of the high-paying jobs.
Right.
I had a more, what would you say, a job that was secondarily associated with the resource economy. I could make enough money in the summer, in 2 months, 4 months, to pay for the tuition and my entire year's rent.
Of course.
Right.
How?
Right.
Hold on. How? How you say it?
And you know, speaking about doing way more than our predecessors for way less, this is actually way worse for Canadians compared to our neighbors in America, given the dismal state of our economy.
American GDP is $80. So for every hour an American worker works on average, he or she produces $80. In Canada, it's 50, measured in USD. So that's every hour. So that means we have to work 60% more just to make the same amount and have the same level of income to buy food and housing.
I mean, that's a pretty stark difference considering we were more or less tracking them one-to-one a decade ago.
And that's actually occurred primarily in the last 10 years.
This downturn change to the trajectory of our economy happened exactly when Gen Z was entering into the workforce. I guess it's just poor timing on our part. Of course, we couldn't control when we were born, but somebody has to take the blame for our struggle.
Stop blaming others, blame yourself.
Well, of course, this is not the only thing that we're facing. Right after that, we're talking about China and TikTok and how we've been caught in the crossfires of an international conflict. This brings light on the peculiarity of our situation as a generation, coming into our adulthood in such a peculiar time. We were coerced by the indirect cyber-intellectual warfare that China waged on us, our society's children, our livelihood, our nation's culture, in the form of TikTok.
TikTok's design is neurologically damaging. Since Generation Z's infatuation with TikTok, our attention spans have dropped to the lowest levels in recorded history, with our attention spans becoming reduced to that of a goldfish. To fund China's openly stated goal of world domination. Chinese President Xi Jinping.
He radiates power in this picture, doesn't he? There's no aggression. He's hunched, has a neutral expression, but you can quite literally feel the authority oozing from him.
Since China adopted the National Intelligence Law in 2017, all Chinese citizens and companies have been under a legal obligation to help the government gather intelligence, whilst also keeping any cooperation with the government a secret.
And we also know that under Chinese law, TikTok, ByteDance, the parent, is required to share data with the Chinese Communist Party. Required to.
This is not going to be a video of me just ranting about Gen Z struggles. Gen Z faces unique struggles, just as every generation has had its own challenges. And you know, some of our hardships spill into other generations as well. But it's important to highlight what makes ours distinct. This isn't about claiming we have it worse, just getting everyone up to speed on what we're dealing with, what's ahead, and why we should endure with hope. What we don't need is dismissiveness, being told to toughen up or get over it.
Stop blaming others. Blame yourself.
That's not encouraging at all. What we do need is acknowledgement. Yes, it's hard. Maybe we don't deserve it, given the privileges of our era, but that doesn't change the reality we face. More importantly, we need a vision, something to look forward to. And this isn't about empty optimism or wishful thinking. By the end of this video, I'll lay out clear, evidence-based perspectives on what's in store for us, because at the end of the day, we will be the ones who benefit most from the changes ahead. Stick around. Right after that, we have the effects of unsolicited labels. It's a little bit of a pace switch. It becomes a little bit easier to follow along. Everything isn't just flying right at you, as much as it was in the last section. We have Brett Cooper in there, giving us a quick rundown of the opinions regarding this generation, and she's siding with a lot of them, but I get into that within this section. We have the narrative of opinions concerning Gen Z. We go into the Brittany Peach case study and what we need the rest of you, those who aren't in Gen Z, what we need you guys to do with the opinions that you hear online regarding us. Now, the next thing is how we have to overcome the labels put on us and how it impedes our ability to get jobs. We are labeled as lazy, unintelligent, distracted, disconnected to reality, unable to socialize, unable to articulate thought or render a reasonable instance or plea. I mean, I could keep going.
Gen Z, look at yourself. Because it's not just that Gen Z has retreated inward or failed to fly out of the nest in the first place, or by the fact that I have no other choice, which is probably the most chronically online Gen Z line I have ever heard, which is the most Gen Z thing I have ever heard because we are not used to in-person human interaction. It is now impacting the workplace, where Gen Z allegedly cannot engage in small talk or even socialize with their coworkers. No wonder companies across the world have had to adapt and prepare for Gen Z. Like, this is a wildly different breed of employees with very specific quirks and needs. I think that this is probably the trend with Gen Z that I just hate the most and makes me the most sad. Something that is so integral for our health, especially for young people, is socializing, having meaningful relationships in your life. And I think that Gen Z historically has kind of ignored that and brushed that aside and said maybe it's too hard. But oh my God, guys, based on what we're seeing, it's very important because this is impacting every single aspect of our lives. I mean, we are struggling in relationships. We're just saying, this is too hard, this is too complicated, I don't know how to do this. Everybody is just tapping out. But Gen Z does not understand how to date. We don't know how to respond to being asked out. Women do not know how to single to men that they are interested. They just sit there like, oh my God, I don't want to look at. Like, we literally know nothing.
Well, anybody can cut up videos and make somebody look bad. Though it came off weird, I don't think she had ill intentions. The point is to draw attention to the cesspool of critiques towards an already overly self-conscious generation. Brett isn't the only one that joined in the critiquing, even though she is Gen Z herself.
Again, we have talked about Gen Z self-diagnosing themselves, all of that stuff. That might be a problem.
There's so much criticism out there online about Gen Z that clash. Even in this video, apparently.
I mean, at this point, I would say that we are probably the most self-aware generation to ever exist, possibly to a fault.
I thought being self-aware was a good thing. And this.
Another huge result of this loneliness and this isolation has been Gen Z not using substances. But for others, and I would argue the majority of people opting out of these substances, it is because of this loneliness, as an article in 2023 covered. The headline reads, Gen Z teens lonelier, more apt to use therapy, less likely to do drugs.
I thought that's positive, but somehow it's more evidence of our flaws. Then she says there's no positive outcome from social media at all.
This is just common sense. There is not a single positive outcome to kids being on social media. There's not even a net neutral outcome. Every single thing that has been studied has been a negative.
Then right after says, we have been using our skills of social media to communicate with each other, and that's so positive.
They're leveraging their social media expertise, their comfort on social media to meet people in person. For example, Bumble BFF usage is increasing. That means you are taking actionable steps. That means that you know that there's a problem and you're trying to address it. You're trying to find friends. That is so positive.
Once again, the problem is not about her only, but about people in general overly criticizing Gen Z online And now it's created this maze of contradicting critiques where the Gen Zer is always the one with the problem in all situations. Even if the fact about Gen Z is positive, it is somehow evidence of our flaws. Now, we've adopted the labels they've given us and found ways to laugh at ourselves.
Sorry I'm late.
You're my lawyer?
Bro, I got this. My client is innocent. No cap. This evidence is not giving. The whole case is high-key sus. We have receipts, Your Honor. Facts.
Hey, do you think you could stay a little late? We really need to make this done by. Yeah, not happening. I gotta go pick up my kid from soccer practice. Oh my gosh, absolutely. Let me just go make a really quick phone call. Yeah, that's gonna be a hard pass. Not really into that kind of stuff. Thanks for the offer, though.
You've got to give us some credit for that. But this premature legacy that's been pushed onto us, the endless diagnosis of our so-called flaws, has gone beyond people just nagging at Gen Z online. Now, it's seeped into the workforce. Employers, hiring managers, people in positions of power listen to these conversations online about Gen Z. They internalize the negative stereotypes, and they let it jade their perception of us. And what does that lead to? A hesitancy to hire Gen Z workers.
These university grads will have to deal with one of the worst job markets in years.
Man, the economy, man, it's hard.
Have you tried looking for a job?
I have. It's bleak.
Basically everybody else I know who's graduated is unemployed.
It's always tough to find that first job out of school, but for Gen Z, it's even harder.
It is disheartening, but at the same time, it is because of the market. It's not really me that may be the issue.
Our ability to land substantial positions is being affected, all because of a narrative we didn't create.
It is now impacting the workplace, where Gen Z allegedly cannot engage in small talk or even socialize with their coworkers. No wonder companies across the world have had to adapt and prepare for Gen Z. Like, this is a wildly different breed of employees with very specific quirks and needs.
You're dealing with human uncertainty, you're dealing with human ambition and human egos, and again, especially young people who think they know what they want and don't, who have certainty and are very outspoken and do not mind going around their boss's boss to come to you. You know, so you're going to be dealing with a 19-year-old saying, "Why am I not given this?" And you're like, "I don't need, where do you work?" You know? They have no fear of doing that. They also have no fear of quitting. And so we've seen this pattern where, remember, they're as a young generation, they're actually less equipped to deal with stress than previous generations. And so anxiety is high, and they're very confrontation avoidant.
What are you talking about, man? A woman recorded herself getting fired.
You have not met expectations for performance. We've decided to part ways with you.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop you right there. Can you explain for me why Brittany Peach is getting let go?
I won't be able to go into specifics.
Wait, why though? I just started. I've been working extremely hard. It's just very, very shocking. Very, very shocking. I've really given my whole energy and life over the last 4 months to this job. And to be let go for no reason is like a huge slap in the face.
I'm really sorry that you're having this experience and feeling this way.
Everyone has a prescription for Gen Z's problems, and as we try to voice our struggle, the world talks right back at us in online think pieces telling us what's wrong with us, rather than simply just offering encouragement. We don't need more amateur diagnoses. We already seek out therapy at higher rates than other generations. Well, then what do we need from the rest of you? Encourage us rather than giving us your unsolicited 2 cents, because at this point, we've gotten so much of your 2 cents that you think we'd be rich by now. In this next section, we take a deeper look at the cost of living. We're going to be talking about how Gen Z owns nothing, which brings rise to topics such as the subscription model and its effects on us, the Kindle dilemma, and the monopoly of control on our information. We have an appearance from another YouTuber who I did not get permission to use their stuff in this video. I just took it because she had a perfect presentation for what I was trying to convey within that section. Also, I want to shout out every single other video that I used in this video that I did not reference. But I'll make sure to have all of those references in my future videos. Brianne Worth summarizes Gen Z's dilemma. She also brings up the Monopoly board game psychology experiment. I promise it's not random, it has a lot to do with our situation. Then we have Freddie, the number guy who runs numbers on the internet. He's gonna be giving a rebuttal to all of the unsolicited opinions that perfectly sums up this section.
They called us Gen Z, the generation of ADHD, whereas all we did was reap the system the generation before us left.
When we are the first generation to be worse off than our parents, as a direct result of the actions of older generations, the same ones that are calling us lazy.
Introducing Brianne Worth, a fellow YouTuber, who nailed every point I was trying to convey in this chapter. Please show her some love. How she put it, I thought it,
but couldn't have put better. I'm in Canada. And generations before us could pay off their homes in 7 years, whereas it takes us 30 years to save up for a down payment. A down payment. We're gonna be paying the mortgage till thy kingdom come. Real.
Back in the day, you could be a fucking milkman and support an entire family and still have a house. You could have a great life delivering milk. Hey, that's not even a job we could have anymore. Today, that would be called unskilled labor, which, by the way, doesn't exist. And you would be lucky to afford the smallest room in a 6-person share house 40 minutes out of the city and maybe a bag of home brand cheese on that income.
Young people say, look, okay, I went through, I got an education, I work nonstop, and I have made the calculation that there is no mathematical path for me to own a house. It's just not possible. In Toronto here, for example, if you take the average income and the average house price, it would take you 29 years to save up for a down payment.
For a down payment?
For a down payment, not to pay it off. Forget paying it off.
Here we see Canada and America's housing prices starting from 1990 and how it's been moving since. Canada and the United States saw the cost of shelter increase year by year well beyond inflation. But unlike the US, where real estate fell back to more affordable levels after the recession, the price of Canadian housing never really dropped, and in fact, only continued to go up and up and up. Now don't get me wrong, America's home prices are also way too high right now and should ideally come back down. But imagine living in Canada, where it's this. Among all the countries in the G7, Canada is by far the worst when it comes to housing affordability.
So I guess that makes us Gen Z, the generation that owns nothing.
The Gen Zers own nothing. They don't want to own anything. Everything is a service.
I miss the days where when you actually purchased something, it was yours.
I just lost every single book on my Kindle, over 300 books.
Then I tried to print at my leisure and it was like, no, you literally can't use the printer unless you have a subscription.
Automakers want to turn this thing you drive every day into a moving subscription.
A new study shows Gen Zers have some finance problems, starting out with more credit card debt than previous generations.
We don't own anything.
And ultimately, that's how you completely control human beings.
The rise of the subscription model. Unfortunately, those tangible moments of ownership are becoming a thing of the past. Today, we've traded physical products for digital subscriptions. Even dating has a subscription model now. But what does this shift really mean for us, and especially Gen Z?
Back in 2016, the World Economic Forum published an article titled, "Welcome to 2030. I own nothing, have no privacy, and life has never been better." Over the past decade, the phrase, "you'll own nothing and be happy," has turned into a pretty apt representation of a lot of our experiences living under late-stage capitalism. Kindle, the most popular e-reader platform on planet Earth, was quietly implementing a change in policy going into effect on the 26th of February 2025 that removes users' ability to back up their Kindle ebooks to a non-Kindle device, where publishers and platforms and governments can change the content of the books in your digital library or delete them altogether at any time, raising concerns about the permanence of our digital libraries and our ability to control the things that we've purchased with our hard-earned money.
Printers, for example. HP's Instant Ink program now requires a subscription if you want to print things with the printer that you own. You choose a plan based on the amount of pages you expect to print per month, and if you go over that, you're charged. What on God's green earth? Tesla is another company that seems to love blocking you from using a product that you bought. That is when their cars are not exploding and or malfunctioning and trapping people inside the car.
There have been numerous reports of Tesla drivers being trapped in their car.
Also breaking this morning, a Tesla Cybertruck goes up in flames.
This is on top of Tesla introducing subscription-based features in their cars. While the cost of living has skyrocketed, wages, not so much. We're expected to pay subscription prices for everything, but we're earning less in real terms than what our parents did. We pay more for everything, we earn less, our money is worth less, and we own nothing. If you don't laugh, you'll cry. And Gen Z is entering the workforce at a time when full-time jobs are harder to secure and underemployment is higher than ever. The ABS reported that while inflation soared above 7% in 2022, wages only increased about 3%. That essentially means that every year, even while earning a full-time salary, we are getting poorer. And if you'd like to hedge some of that income into an asset that doesn't depreciate, you can't because you can't afford that. And these older generations that are kind of punching down are the same generations that have had every single advantage handed to them. Booming economies, generous tax breaks, free university, affordable housing, and a low cost of living. They effectively climbed up the ladder and then yanked it up behind them so none of us could climb up with them. And then they still have the audacity to turn around and call younger generations lazy and blame our wealth inequality on avocados. Make that make sense. So when people say millennials and Gen Z are just bad with money and we're lazy and we have no work ethic, what they really mean is you didn't win the economic lottery that we did, and they're largely not able to acknowledge that for some reason. Because it is a lot easier to just dunk on everyone younger than you and then convince themselves that we're not working hard despite productivity being higher than ever. Younger generations are working faster, longer, and more efficiently, and the gap between productivity and a typical worker's pay has increased dramatically for decades. In fact, 10 years of huge productivity gains has resulted in a 0% increase in real hourly wages. So all of that extra value, it's not going to workers, it's going straight to the top, to CEOs, to shareholders, to share buybacks, to the ruling class effectively, and that would explain why wealth inequality is so polarized at the moment. The gap between rich and poor has never been bigger. The middle class effectively does not exist in the US anymore. So not only do we own nothing, we have to subscribe to everything. We're locked out of housing and we're bleeding money just to exist at a bare minimum baseline. We are the most productive that any generation has ever been in terms of economic output, but we're also being told we should work harder, and that's where it's all going wrong. We're working more hours, we're taking on side hustles, the gig economy has exploded, we're just not getting paid for it. And across the board, everybody still can't seem to save money. It's not because every single person is all of a sudden irresponsible, it's because the math does not work anymore. All of this reminds me of a pretty wild psychology experiment that kind of broke my brain when I first heard about it. So researchers got pairs of strangers to play Monopoly, but they rigged the game. A coin toss essentially decided who got to be the rich player. If you were rich, you started with double the money. You collected more cash when you passed go. You basically got every advantage handed to you. And the results were, maybe unsurprisingly, absolutely cooked. The rich players started acting differently really fast. They moved their pieces more aggressively for some reason. They took over the board. They started boasting about their wealth. They even ate more of the free snacks, and the poor players just kind of sat there struggling to keep up, as you could imagine. Now you'd think the rich players, knowing it was rigged and knowing it just came down to a coin flip, would realize that it was just down to luck that they won. But this was the mind-blowing part. When the researchers asked why it is that they thought that they won, not one of them talked about the coin flip. Not a single rich player attributed their win to the coin flip. Not a single one acknowledged that they had inbuilt advantages the entire game. They all mentioned their acumen in Monopoly, how competent they were, and the decisions that they made throughout the game as the reasons that they won, which is so obviously nonsense, and it's kind of mind-blowing but painfully familiar. People who benefit from luck or privilege often tend to rewrite the story as if they earned it all based on merit alone. Now zoom out and apply that to an entire society, an entire generation, and you start to see the problem. Because the people at the top genuinely think they climbed the entire mountain by themselves with no help, no advantages, no privilege, no luck of the draw, while the rest of us are out here with no boots, no rope, and just a subscription fee to be allowed to stay on the trail. By the way, this doesn't mean older generations have not worked hard and no one has, pulled themselves up by their bootstraps. It is just acknowledging that the playing field was so much more in their advantage than it is for younger generations. So many of them may have worked hard, and I'm not questioning that, but they had every single advantage that we no longer have. So we can work twice as hard and get half as far. That is just a fact.
I'm sorry. If you only want to work 4 hours, it's going to be harder for you to get a house. We busted our behinds. We had to bust our...
Hi, Whoopi. I'm Freddie. I run numbers on the internet, and I got to show you something. The minimum wage in 1980 was $3.10. It is now $7.25. The average salary was $12,500. It's now $59,000. And the median household income was $22,000, and now it's only $77,000 for a 3.5 times increase. However, rent was $243 on average. Now it is $1,900 for a 7.8 times increase. The median house price was $47,000. It is now $419,000 for an 8.9 times increase. And the big one, college, was $2,300. It is now $30,000, 13 times more expensive. Our median household income, to feel like they did back then, for rent should be $171,000 for the family. And for college, it'd be equivalent to our family making $286,000. And to remind everyone, the median household income is $77,000. So Whoopi, with all due respect, I think millennials and Gen Zs have it at least 8 to 10 times harder than you all did.
So look, we're going to trade those looks of a miss, those ill-warranted labels, and the struggle of a king for the wages of peasants. We're going to trade all of that to our own avail at the end of the day. I truly believe that.
In this next section, we have a pace switch, a change of editing styles as well. It becomes more explanatory. And thanks for making it this far in the video. Please keep going. There's some more good stuff in here. The section I'm talking about contains a more grounded look at the problem once again. This time referencing a book that I read and some research. You want to listen for the compounding ripple effect and networks and peer dynamics. There's this book I've been reading, When? The Scientific Secrets of Perfect Timing by Daniel H. Pink. And there's a section in there that hit a little too close to home. He breaks down this eerie truth. The moment you enter the workforce sticks with you. Not for a year, not until you figure things out, but for up to 20 years. Now, that's not just a random number. It's not just a dramatic claim. It's backed by research from Yale economist Lisa Can. She found that people who start their careers during economic downturns earn less, not just in year one, but for decades after. And it's not just because they're lazy or didn't grind hard enough. It's because timing, macroeconomic timing, locks you into roles that don't fit, don't pay, and don't grow. And once you start on that kind of footing, climbing out becomes its own uphill career. Think about it. When the economy's bad, people take whatever job they can get, not because they're directionless, but because survival outranks strategy. You end up in positions you're overqualified for, underpaid in, and too exhausted to pivot out of. That early mismatch snowballs, and suddenly, you're 5-10 years deep into a career that doesn't reflect your potential. So here's the compounding ripple effect. It's not just initial pay. Being underemployed or stuck in downturn level gigs means skipping out on 401k matches, building less credit, and delaying home ownership. Each missed opportunity multiplies the gap. It's like dropping a pebble in a pond. That first ripple keeps expanding. Pink references the temporal affective pattern. Our moods, focus, and even decision-making cycles follow circadian rhythms, peaks, troughs, and rebounds, but there's a bigger rhythm at play, societal momentum. When you're starting life in a dip, not just a bad day, but a systemic dip, it's harder to catch up emotionally and strategically. That inertia deepens the financial lag. Addressing those that think it's really just their personal problem, I promise it's not. Let's talk about networks and peer dynamics. So job hopping, mentorships, and social capital often happen on a timeline, and peer groups entering together push each other. First job, then promotion, then investment, then romance, then engagement, marriage, etc. And if your cohort enters during a freeze, the entire timeline shifts. That network bump, delayed or lost. It's less about you showing up late, and it's more about the whole room being late. Nobody feels like they're ready to start anything serious, and you can't blame them when things don't feel stable enough. He's talking about full trajectory shifts, not just a one-time hiccup. Entire cohorts have energy dips akin to the afternoon trough. Imagine an entire generation collectively wrestling through sluggish hiring cycles, suppressed salaries, and then trying to recover after 20 years of headwinds. And it sounds like some serious stuff, but I'm here to tell you, there is a way out. Pink doesn't say these things to depress us. He says it to explain a pattern, one that too many of us are living out without having the words for it. Sounds bleak, but
we're not complaining though, because heavy is the head that wears the crown. We are laying the foundations for something special. I truly believe the tides have turned. The pain we feel will not only be recompensed, but it will be our crown.
This next section is comprised of comparisons with the lost generation, a generation that entered into their adulthood right after World War I. They experienced a pretty similar situation to Gen Z, and that's what I bring light to in this section. Also using their experiences so that we can be more knowledgeable on how we move forward and get out of this rut. And before we continue any further, the next chapter after this one is what we've all been waiting for. The hope we have as a generation, ideas of our path forward. So please stick around for that. Now, let's get back to it. We're actually a mirror, a reflection of a generation from a century ago. A generation disillusioned by war, betrayed by institutions, and forced to rewrite the rules of life.
Our generation, we have a similar hardship.
This isn't just history repeating itself, it's an echo. To truly understand our place in history, we need to look back to a generation that came of age in the wake of World War I.
The last generation similar to us was
the lost generation, born in 1883 to the 1900s, whose nuances parallel ours quite accurately. It's chilling. Let me show you. So Gen Z entered adulthood during a post-pandemic world, economic inequality, the AI revolution, and institutional distrust. Whereas the lost generation entered theirs during the post-World War I chaos, the collapse of empires, mass industrial destruction, work-life redefinition, and deep social disillusionment. Both generations hit the job market during economic chaos. The result? Both generations started with fewer options and weaker financial footing As we covered earlier, that economic scar doesn't fade, it lingers for decades. The next congruence, technological disruption. Gen Z experienced the technological upheaval of automation from generative AI, the platform economy birthed by social media, the attention economy, the reality of any and all aspects of life being monetizable, the gig economy. And the lost generations experienced the electrification of day-to-day life, the redefinition of manual labor in the form of the assembly line and
the tedious work, the horrible conditions of working men, women, children, and all they endured in those godforsaken factories, the mass manufacturing, the boom in productivity,
and mechanized war.
The wars of our forefathers, the sacrifice, the unsung heroes, the bereavement that yielded no witnesses, no one to account for the pain endured and the pain that took lives.
Super groundbreaking, earth-shattering stuff where each generation faced a revolution in how the world worked. In both cases, the rules changed faster than society could adapt, forcing people to learn, pivot, and survive in a world their parents couldn't explain.
My parents don't know and have not experienced most of the issues that I face. If I describe it to them, sure, they may get the concepts after explaining it to them, but they won't understand the pressure and how it weighs on the mind. They don't know what it's like working a job, being self-aware of the fact while working that I likely won't be able to afford a house till I'm 50, if I'm lucky. They don't know what it's like to go to school wondering whether the industry I could potentially go into will get replaced by AI or accelerating technology. Or even if my job doesn't get replaced, an economy where traditional job security is almost a myth. It's something they likely never had to face.
The next similarity, number 3. The institutions both generations were raised to trust failed them. Gen Z watched political systems crumble into polarization as skepticism about our governments grew after the pandemic, higher ed becoming a debt trap, and among a few began to be perceived as obsolete, and mental health systems breaking under pressure. And then the lost generation lived through the collapse of empires, a war that made no moral sense, and the disillusionment of old values in times of war where extreme beliefs are rewarded and centered arguments are cast to the wayside. The result? A deep generational cynicism towards authority, towards tradition, and even the future.
Modern life is designed to break you. And no, I don't mean that in a poetic, metaphorical way. I mean literally, your job, your relationships, your lifestyle, even your sense of self. All of it is set up in a way that's meant to drain you. In a way that makes you feel like you're constantly behind, constantly not enough, constantly stuck. On a macro level, it's almost like there's a system in place. Some kind of weird partnership between corporations, government, and just the overall culture that's been designed to keep you alive just long enough to milk your money and drain your life force in the process. I can't even explain it, but it just seems like some kind of machine that's designed to keep you constantly tired, consuming, and distracted from what's really going on. This system, if we should call it that, it's built for productivity, not people, for profit, not peace. And the craziest thing is that if you're not breaking under the weight of it all, then that probably means you're numbing yourself just enough to get by, and that's what they want.
There's something inherently wrong with our current world order of capitalism. Yes, work has lost its promise. Work used to promise security. Get a job, afford a house, mobility or progression. You work hard, you move up, meaning. Build something that matters. You're not just a cog in the system. Everybody's playing their part towards some greater good and retirement. One day, you'll rest and enjoy the fruits. But what work now is for Gen Z? Survival. Pay rent or starve. Anxiety. Compete with AI, infinite applicants, burnout culture, and manage this on top of the underlying stress of an uncertain future. Alienation. Sacrificing your humanity for the realization of the product, and postponement. One day you'll make it, but the math just does not add up. So the capitalist social contract has been broken. We work, but there's no promised land at the end of the path. And it's not this bleak for every single person. There are people that are doing all right within this system, within our generation. But there is a cost of playing the rigged game. There is a silent sacrifice happening at every moment. The estrangements or alienation to our humanity that capitalism poses is crucial, in fact, detrimental to all of us.
And we all feel it. We all know it's true.
For the sake of productivity, capitalism expects you to make moral and physical sacrifices to make money. Moral sacrifices like lying or cheating or finding loopholes or deceiving or finding shortcuts to accomplish a task in your work duties. Physical sacrifices like sacrificing sleep, eating less healthy to save time or money, and or numbing yourself with capitalism's vices that also steal from your wallet. There must be a better way to do it. In the meantime of figuring this out, we have to survive within it without letting it sacrifice our well-being for its endless demand for productivity. Capitalism can't be overthrown. AI won't save us because the incentive structures of capitalism won't allow it. Communism won't replace it because it depends on capitalism for a balance. But you can transcend capitalism. We all can, individually, by adopting a superior internal system. So what would this look like in practice? Last but not least, number 4. This fourth and last section leeways perfectly into our next section, which is the path forward, the prescription for Gen Z. and what we can do regarding all these issues. Last but not least, number 4, cultural identity and creative rebellion. So out of the wreckage came reinvention. The lost generation gave us Hemingway, Fitzgerald, Gertrude Stein, radicals who redefined literature, art, and expatriate life, bleeding into society and giving hopes of a better future and supplying them with the willpower needed to dig themselves out of the rut. Gen Z is rewriting culture too, through TikTok satire, digital activism, and a relentless questioning of capitalism and identity.
We stopped celebrity worship. We called our leaders to greater levels of social awareness and cultural intelligence. We're meticulous with our art. We're choosy with our attention because so many things are beckoning for it nowadays. And we've had it up to here with the candy content. Okay, maybe just a little.
Different tools, same drive to create meaning out of chaos. So what happens when a generation is born into decline but refuses to go down with it? We adapt. We build.
We will be the ultimate benefactors at the end of the day. Hard times pay off. Our reward is just around the corner, and we'll reap it for a lifetime.
Finally, we've reached part 2, the path forward. We go over the realities of our situation and the 3 real options that we have as a generation and as individuals. That third option holds our answer, and it births the last and final segment, Wisdom's Declassified Capitalism Survival Guide, which is exactly what the name implies. So, what's the path forward for Gen Z and beyond? There are 3 real options, one delusional, one tragic, and one potentially transcendent. So, the first, the false hope. Climb the pyramid. This is the lie being sold. You too can become a tech bro or startup billionaire or an AI founder if you just hustle, learn to prompt engineer, get 8 hours of sleep, build 3 side projects, and start a podcast. But the pyramid is full. The top is guarded. The ladder is broken. Trying to win capitalism is like entering a casino where the house wins every round. The next option is the collapse option. Opt out, burn out, and give up. Some people see the futility and disengage. They are quiet quitting, working just enough to survive, living online, numbed out, doom scrolling, and deliberate self-destruction, drugs, burnout, and nihilism. This is real and rising. And tragically, it's logical. Why work for a game that's rigged? The third option, the radical hope, the post-capitalist individual sovereignty option. Here's the real hard path, but the only one that offers an iota of dignity. Become sovereign, not necessarily rich, not powerful, but whole. This means use capitalism's tools like AI and personal branding to buy your own time back.
We're equipped with the experience of our flaws. We have the classical liberal spirit. We have the gravity of the fundamentalists. And we have the open-mindedness and the vigor of our youth.
Refuse to trade your life for a rigged game. Optimize for health, truth, relationships, and beauty. And build or join networks where value is not monetized, but mutualized. It's a very different game. It's a little hard to wrap your head around. One where the goal is not to win capitalism, but to transcend it by creating micro-environments where meaning and survival are not dictated by the market. Yes, the market is rigged. It rewards perceptions of productivity rather than the real thing. They print money to get us up and about, continuously grinding for more. The market makes complex contracts designed to take advantage of people that know less, and establishes endless hoops to jump through to get to a simple end. Our lives cannot be predicated on something so corrupt. We have to use capitalism's tools to reject its values. Extract money from the system, but never let money define your self-worth. This is where we can win. We can exploit capitalism's incentives to fund our own game, not capitalism's. Build capital, but reinvest it in anti-capitalist ends like clean food, regenerative sleep, authentic institutions, time with loved ones, and deep learning. Well, we've entered the next segment. Welcome to Wisdom's Declassified Capitalism Survival Guide. We have 6 rules. I'm going to list them out really quickly so that you can skip to each one's elaboration if you please. Rule number 1, be a post-capitalist within capitalism. Rule number 2, leverage AI but guard your moral compass, your values. Rule number 3, elongate the total amount of time that you have by prioritizing your health and focusing on longevity. Rule number 4, prioritizing honest work that helps people. Rule number 5, the personal branding economic paradigm shift, where value is going to be held in the economy later in the future as we live alongside AI and it takes up a good portion of our labor market. And rule number 6, forming networks of like-minded post-capitalists and the power that it takes back from them and brings to us. Rule number 1, accept the game, then rewrite the winning conditions. Operate within capitalism without letting it define your internal scoreboard. Capitalism rewards output, productivity, perceptions of productivity, hustle, competition, and shortcuts. But this ideology is about optimization for longevity, fulfillment, truth, and health. The key is to play the capitalist game just well enough to be secure. but channel your deeper energy into something non-transactional. Your health span, your truth, your joy. Rule number 2, outsource decision-making to AI, but guard the moral compass. Leverage AI to neutralize capitalism's tactical complexity so you can focus on living, not surviving. There's so many complex systems, fine prints, terms and conditions, and holes to jump through in our society that we are on the short end of. The game was not made in our favor. Our goal should be to, yes, use AI to optimize our schedules, diet, productivity, finances, and even our social life. But some have taken the approach of completely rejecting AI and all that it offers.
It's busted. People are hyper relying on artificial intelligence to substitute for their own critical thinking skills. A concept that I didn't really realize was called cognitive offloading. I kept saying this over and over again. I was like, you're letting a machine think for you. That's so crazy. I still don't trust artificial intelligence because it has the capacity to hallucinate. And also, depending on what the inputs are, it has a tendency to give you information that you want to hear. Given its tendencies of lying, I think it's still unreliable as a trusted resource, and you should trust yourself. You also certainly should not substitute the part of your brain that exercises critical thinking.
Hassan made solid points, no doubt, and I agree with the spirit of a few. Just because we have AI doesn't mean we're supposed to hand over our entire thinking apparatus. That would be like saying, since we invented cars, walking is obsolete. Or since we have the police, why train in self-defense? It's backwards logic, and it goes without saying. Tools don't negate the need for skill. They just change the playing field. What makes you cognitively feeble isn't AI, it's outsourcing discernment. That's not the machine's fault. AI is a convenience, not a replacement. It's not here to think for you. It's here to free you up to think better. And on the point about hallucinations and misinformation, AI's hallucination, lying, and telling you what you want to hear can be fixed very easily. You have to only ask it objective, quantitative questions, and you leave the subjective, qualitative questions to be deliberated by yourself and your circle of friends and loved ones. Don't ask AI to parent your values. Ask it for data. Let it crunch the numbers, not craft your conscience. And keep the moral, emotional, and philosophically heavy lifting where it belongs with you, your people, and your lived experience. Humans come up with values, not AI. And AI tries to interpret human values, but ends up feeding you back your subjective opinion. So the points that Hassan brings up are true, but easy to mitigate. The way he puts it makes it seem like AI will leave you cognitively feeble, intellectually useless, just by using it. So never touch it with a 10-foot pole. I'm here to tell you that doing that will leave you behind, inflexible, and unaware of how to thrive in the redefined labor market. Imagine if someone rejected the internet when it first came out. Or every mathematician refused to use the calculator once it was invented because they were so scared it would make them dumber. Yeah, not a smart idea. Let AI do what it does best. Identify patterns and solve for efficiency. Let it solve complex problems where multiple factors need to be taken into account, but don't abdicate value judgments to it. Our goal should be to, yes, use AI to optimize our schedules, diet, productivity, finances, and even our social life. AI is only but a sailor on your ship. You are the captain of the ship.
We have AI and are overwhelmed with the possibilities to our productivity. We are laying the foundations for this new age of productivity, the future with AI, essentially. Our timing is more pinnacle than we could grasp. And honestly, I think that has something to do with why our work and lives are so difficult. It's because we are the spearheads into this new golden era.
AI should be our exit to capitalism, but greed blocks the door. Yes. If AI ran the factories, farms, surgeries, law firms, and construction sites, we could all be liberated. Basic needs covered, humans focused on fulfillment, exploration, healing, art, and joy. That is accelerationism. Lean into AI so hard that it triggers a total reorganization of the economy. But capitalist incentive does not equal freedom. The people who control AI want subscriptions, not salvation. They want efficiency, not emancipation. They want user engagement, not human flourishing. So instead of freeing us, AI is being used to increase productivity without redistributing the gains. But productivity for what end? To make the rich richer. That's it. In a reality where any and all aspects of life are monetizable, it feels like there is no time for anything. All moments you spend on a task may be better spent on some other task. The possibilities are endless. All moments of rest produce some level of poverty, even the moments of rest one deserves, because every single moment is monetizable. Any time that you spend not working means that you're falling behind in some capacity. The solution to such a generational dilemma must be to elongate the amount of time we have in total, because theoretically, if one were to have unlimited time, all forms of time-related stress is abolished. If we elongated the amount of time we had left, then suddenly we're not in so much of a rush anymore. How do we elongate time? And when I say this, I mean extend our lifespans. We have to make choices that optimize for long-term integrity and biological preservation. We have to predicate our lives around the concept of living longer, not dying. Don't dying, maybe.
We want something of merit. We are okay waiting. We're more concerned with longevity rather than the temporary quick fix solutions. As long as it's something worth waiting for, we're more than okay investing our time in ways that extend our lives so that we can experience more tangible moments rather than trying to cram the good moments into what little time we have left. We care about our fitness, our mental wellness, our appearance, what we eat, how we look, because these are signs of our longevity.
Next, we have to put our energy into honest work, the kind that reflects our values, strengthens us as people, and actually helps others. When we make money by taking advantage of people, we break the system. That's how our institutions become inauthentic. Things don't work as they should, our quality of life crumbles, and our society collapses. Ray Dalio talks about this in Why Nations Succeed and Fail. When values decay, nations follow. Here's the bottom line. If something shortens your life or kills your focus, it shouldn't be worth your money or your time. It holds no value to us, and we won't exchange anything valuable for it. If we stop buying what harms us, companies stop making it. If enough of us do this, we limit the demand for the bad stuff in the market, which limits its production, thereby correcting the value structures of our society. We don't game the system of capitalism, but we beat it by being invincible to its games, by making morality and health our only KPI. Creators like Mr. Beast, Maya Maples, Ryan Trahan, that utilized one of capitalism's tools of personal branding to get to the top of a system and redefine what it means to be successful in that system with a more value-based approach. For example, Mr. Beast used his chocolate business to redefine the child labor markets abroad, making sure that children that are underage aren't working and people who are working are getting enough to live comfortable lives. Ryan Trahan, with his candy brand, he wants to be number one so that he can redefine what it means to be a candy brand, focusing on using ingredients that don't kill the consumer. Mia Maples with her sweatpant clothing business that follows all the ethical rules that fast fashion brands do away with. I'm not telling you to become a Mr. Beast, a Ryan Trahan, or a Mia Maples. I'm telling you to utilize personal branding, the power of personification, and telling your story, the power of being you, to come up on much capitalistic gain, which means make a lot of money, so that you can have enough freedom, power, and leeway to erect pillars of justice, your values, and your morality in areas that you see fit. The real problem of AI is the depersonification and the lack of humanity. Our education system is finding it hard to tell the student from the AI when turning in assignments. The value of our economy in the future is going to be based off of entertainment value. You know this because the top entertainers are some of the richest people in the world. But the people that utilize personal branding and personification, that is where the money will lie. That is why streamers are doing so well. We love connecting with people we love. I'm not telling you to become a streamer. There's so many ways that amplifying yourself and your personal brand looks like. The point is to lean into your personality, yourself, and your story. Lastly, find a cohort of like-minded individuals to form a parallel economy of similar-minded practitioners. Build networks of like-minded individuals living post-capitalist lives inside a capitalist infrastructure. This is where our power multiplies. Imagine a guild of people all playing the ethically efficacious personal brand game. They refer clients to each other, buy each other's products, and validate each other's life choices, and challenge each other to stay true and healthy. They don't give in to capitalism's tactics, but they exploit capitalism to get out of it. And then we have the final stage. Us as sovereign entities. By sovereign, I mean autonomous, and we have the agency to pursue the type of lifestyles that we would like. And my mic gave out in this section, so it sounds like I'm Batman, but please forgive it and bear with me. That section is comprised of the summary, a conclusion, and a little quote to have you on your way. Then we reach our final form. Us as sovereign, healthy entities. The ultimate capitalist flex is to become untouchable. We are unexploitable. We are unfakeable. We are unkillable as far as biological age goes. And this means no boss owns our time, no algorithm owns our attention, no system owns our soul. Except the ones we allow, of course. Our bio-age is our balance sheet. Our peace is our P&L. Our mind is our factory, and our body is our bank. In summary, everything I said really quickly is, number one, use capitalism's rewards as tools to get out, not ends, to continue the exploitative cycle. Number 2, outsource tactical choices to AI, but guard your values. Don't deliberate with AI and use people. Use AI and deliberate with people. Number 3, make moral clarity and biological health your bottom line in all aspects. These are the unsacrificable currencies of the world we are building. And number 4, join forces with other players playing the same game. 2 is better than 1. And lastly, live long enough to see capitalism consume itself, AI push our society forward, and your story being told, to play your part in the big system we call life, while you stay radiant, awake, and alive. So, short and sweet, what do we have to look forward to? Let me be honest. If we expect the system to save us, nothing. But if we use AI to radically increase our leverage, build lives that reject capitalist reward structures as the only meaning, and create decentralized, authentic, value-based microeconomies, then we can be the first generation that escapes capitalism, not through revolution or communism, but through individual agency, aided by general intelligence. And I'll leave this with you. The future belongs to those who use AI to reduce toil, not increase output. The winners will be those who exit the game, not just those who win it. Freedom will no longer be given. It must be designed by people like you, people like us.
We are Gen Z.
And then the last and final section is me introducing myself, why you should even listen to me in the first place, my perspectives on what politics is, and trust me, it's going to surprise you, and the purpose and direction of this channel and my personal brand. Thank you.
And of course, that brings us to politics. But first, let me introduce myself. Hey, what's up? My name is Wisdom, Nigerian Canadian. I don't know everything. It's just my name. Student at the University of Calgary, studying political science, minor in law and society. I don't have my degree yet. And of course, the further I progress, the more I realize I don't know. So I work for the federal government. I serve my country because of the sheer belief and hope in it and gratitude towards it and the opportunity it brought to me and my family. And although my perspectives shouldn't be taken as the perspectives of our government, and I know you know this, but the Department of Public Affairs is gonna come for me if I didn't include that in the video. And to me, politics is how you navigate social environments in order to create a positive reputation around the people that matter to you, appeasing them while still being authentic to your own values, unlocking the keys to your own autonomy and freedom to pursue your personal impetus, and simultaneously doing it in a way that will benefit yourself and those around you. And one can only pander and please others if you're aware of the possible variances of opinion, understanding the different schools of thought and philosophies that gave rise to those opinions. And the political sciences offer a very insightfully delightful way, if I do say so myself. It's a very scrumptious way to that wisdom, and I'm here to point you in that direction. And you know, by politics, I don't mean those tiring subjects that are better off avoided, the topics that bring out the most judgmental sides of everyone, where nobody wins because everyone is offended. I think the true essence of politics lies far beyond that. It's actually about how to get what you want from your boss, your professors, your coworkers, your friends, your girlfriend, and maybe even her parents. Yeah, definitely her parents. Not in a conniving way. Look, you can think of it as a campaign. And no, you may not be running for president or prime minister, but yes, in all social interactions that require convincing, you have one. And I'm creating this channel to analyze public figures from a political science perspective while emphasizing evidence-based analysis. Yeah, so on this channel, I'll analyze cultural events, celebrities, public figures, many of them who may or may not know or be aware of the power dynamics they operate in and how their decisions and navigation of this environment holds the ability to dictate culture and redefine social life for a generation. So yeah, join me on this journey of political power plays, media manipulation, breakdowns, and deep dives into how this game of life in our modern society is played from a political science perspective. Hit that subscribe button because, oh, we're only just getting started.